Welcome to True Freedom, where we explore profound philosophies to help you live a more meaningful life. Today, we're diving into a challenging yet captivating topic: why Nietzsche's Übermensch is the key to living a meaningful life. Have you ever wondered, am I truly living up to my full potential? Imagine if Leonardo da Vinci hadn't dared to transcend the limits of his time, would we have the masterpiece Mona Lisa? Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche believed that each of us has the potential to become the best version of ourselves, but it requires the courage to face challenges and create new values. As Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." So, how can we become the Overman? Someone who lives with joy, strength and meaning. Let's embark on this journey of discovery right now. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story. One introduction to the Übermensch and its significance in Nietzsche's philosophy. In Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra there are three major teachings that the sage Zarathustra has to offer: the will to power, the eternal recurrence, and the Übermensch. We have explored the ideas of the will to power and the eternal recurrence in depth in previous discussions. Now, we will do the same here with the Übermensch. The concept of the Übermensch, often translated as the Overman or Superman, represents a central ideal in Nietzsche's philosophy, a figure who rises above conventional morality and societal constraints to create their own values. But what does it truly mean to transcend ordinary human limitations? Imagine a sculptor chiseling away at a block of marble, not bound by traditional forms but driven by an inner vision that defies established norms. Similarly, the Übermensch embodies this creative force, crafting a life of meaning and authenticity despite the chaos of existence. As Nietzsche himself once suggested, man is something that shall be overcome. This raises profound questions. Are we content with mediocrity, or can we strive toward greatness? Throughout history, individuals like Leonardo da Vinci or Marie Curie might be seen as echoes of this ideal, not because they were perfect, but because they dared to push boundaries and redefine what humanity could achieve. Yet, how does one begin such a journey? Is it through relentless self-discipline, unyielding curiosity, or perhaps a combination of both? These are the kinds of inquiries that make the Übermensch not just a philosophical construct, but a call to action for those seeking to live beyond the mundane. To origin of the term Übermensch and appropriate translations. Let's first start with the word itself, Übermensch. The first English translation rendered it as beyond man, and later it was named Superman. However, this promoted its misidentification with the comic book character Superman, which has led to widespread confusion. It has also been called superhuman Berman, or even left untranslated in its original German form. Walter Kaufmann, one of the most important Nietzschean scholars, explains that the closest equivalent to the German term is Overman. We will be using this term throughout our discussion, although referencing it in its original German can also add depth and authenticity to the conversation. Nietzsche was a profound admirer of Ralph Waldo Emerson, often finding inspiration in his works. He once wrote in his notes, Emerson, "Never have I felt so much at home in a book and in my home, as I may not praise it, it is too close to me." Emerson had coined the term the oversoul, which may have influenced Nietzsche's choice of the term Übermensch, making the translation Overman doubly appropriate. Furthermore, Nietzsche himself translated Emerson's original English phrase oversoul into German as the higher soul, which could have further shaped his own concept of the higher man. Could it be that Nietzsche saw the Übermensch as a kind of spiritual evolution, akin to Emerson's vision of transcending individual limitations to connect with something greater? Nietzsche did not come up with the concept of the Overman until later in his life, but its seeds were planted earlier in his philosophical journey. In his earlier works, he spoke of free spirits, individuals who defied societal norms and embraced intellectual independence. These free spirits would later evolve into the sage Zarathustra, who paves the way for the Overman. In one of his early books, Human, All Too Human, a book for free spirits, Nietzsche dedicates the work to these imagined free spirits, though he acknowledges they did not yet exist. Instead, he envisioned them emerging slowly over time, like distant stars gradually becoming visible in the night sky. During periods of illness, isolation, and inactivity, Nietzsche found solace in imagining these free spirits as companions, beings with whom he could chat, laugh, and find joy despite his struggles. This progression from free spirits to the Übermensch reflects Nietzsche's belief in humanity's potential for growth and transformation. But what does it take to move beyond being merely free and become something greater? Perhaps the answer lies in embracing both suffering and creativity, much like how an artist transforms pain into beauty on the canvas. As Nietzsche famously stated, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Could this why be the driving force behind the emergence of the Overman? Three stages of transformation to become the Übermensch: the camel, the lion, and the child. The free spirit challenges conventional ways of living and promotes societal growth. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the Overman is linked with the final metamorphosis of the child. Nietzsche outlines 3 stages of transformation for self-overcoming: the camel, the lion, and the child. These stages represent a journey of inner evolution, each demanding a profound shift in mindset and values. But how does one begin this transformative process? The first stage is the camel. Not everyone is capable of becoming a camel, as it requires immense humility and the willingness to step outside one's comfort zone. The camel symbolizes the ability to bear heavy burdens, endure suffering, and sacrifice oneself for the sake of growth. Nietzsche suggests that we must debase ourselves to injure our pride, and let our folly shine in order to mock our wisdom. For instance, imagine an accomplished athlete who, despite their success, chooses to train harder and embrace failure as part of their journey. This act of self-humbling reminds us that greatness is not about arrogance, but about recognizing our limitations and striving to transcend them. As Nietzsche might ask, are you willing to take on more weight when you feel proud, to prove that you are not as great as you think? The second stage is the lion. The lion represents the fierce rejection of external authority and tradition. To become a lion, one must utter the sacred no to all conventions and rules that once fettered the spirit. This stage is about claiming freedom and asserting one's will to power. Think of historical figures like Martin Luther King Jr., who courageously said no to systemic injustice, paving the way for a new vision of equality and justice. Yet, while the lion's role is crucial, it is not the final destination. The lion clears the path but cannot create anew. What happens when the old structures are dismantled? How does one move forward into uncharted territory? The final stage is the child. Unlike the bird and camel or the rebellious lion, the child embodies playfulness, creativity, and renewal. After rejecting the past with the sacred no, the child proclaims the sacred yes to life itself. This stage signifies a new beginning, free from the weight of tradition or the spirit of heaviness. Picture a young child building a sandcastle on the beach, completely immersed in the moment, filled with wonder, and unburdened by doubt or fear. The child's mind is pure creativity, unspoiled by preconceived notions or external constraints. At this stage, one can create one's own values and reality, forging a path that aligns with one's authentic self. After achieving the final metamorphosis, one can truly become who one is. This phrase echoes Nietzsche's belief in the importance of self-discovery and authenticity. The child's state of being is not just a metaphor, it is a call to live fully in the present, embracing curiosity and imagination. It is here that one transcends ordinary existence and becomes an Overman, a creator of values, a beacon of individuality, and a testament to human potential. As Nietzsche famously wrote, the child is innocence and forgetting, a new beginning, a game, a self-propelled wheel, a first movement, a sacred yes. Could this be the ultimate goal of human existence, to say yes to life in all its complexity and beauty? For contrast between the are mentioned the last man. The Overman is the ultimate form of humanity, one who overcomes nihilism by creating their own values and focusing on this life rather than the afterlife. The Overman places all faith in themselves as an autonomous creator, relying on nothing external. They represent the pinnacle of self-overcoming, rising above the human norm and transcending all difficulties, embracing whatever life throws at them. This figure overcomes mediocrity and is unafraid to live dangerously. As Nietzsche declares, the Overman shall be the meaning of the earth. To master oneself is the hardest task of all, requiring the greatest increase in power over oneself, not over others, a concept deeply tied to Nietzsche's idea of the will to power, which symbolizes self-overcoming. Happiness, for Nietzsche, is the feeling that power increases and that resistance is overcome. Thus, the Overman will be the happiest individual, embodying the meaning and justification of existence. However, the concept of the Overman did not first appear in Thus Spoke Zarathustra as many believe. In fact, Nietzsche briefly mentions it in an aphorism from the Gay Science, the invention of God's heroes and overmen of all kinds, as well as near men, under men, dwarfs, fairies, centaurs, satyrs, demons, and devils, was the inestimable preliminary exercise for the justification of the egoism and sovereignty of the individual, the freedom that one conceded to a god in his relation to other gods, one eventually also granted oneself in relation to laws, customs, and neighbors. Here, the Overmen seem to symbolize ancient Greek gods, demigods, and heroes, figures who defy conformity to a single norm and stand as antithesis to mediocrity and stagnation. To realize one's true self, Nietzsche argues, is not to uncover a hidden inner essence but to envision a self that is immeasurably higher than who you currently are. This aphorism is significant because it contains one of the few references to the Overman before Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and was written just prior to that work. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the Overman makes his most prominent public appearance alongside the eternal recurrence and the will to power concepts that had not been fully developed until Zarathustra expounded them. After descending from the mountains, Zarathustra arrives in a town where a crowd has gathered in the market square, expecting to see a tightrope walker. Instead, Zarathustra addresses the people, "I teach you the Overman. Man is something that should be overcome. What have you done to overcome him? All beings so far have created something beyond themselves, and do you want to be the ebb of this great tide, and return to the beasts rather than overcome man? What is the ape to man? A laughing stock, or a painful embarrassment? And man shall be just that for the Overman, a laughing stock or a painful embarrassment. You have made your way from worm to man, and much in you is still worm. Once you were apes, and even now too, man is more ape than any ape. Behold, I teach you the Overman. The Overman is the meaning of the earth. Nietzsche will say, the Overman shall be the meaning of the earth. Where is the lightning to lick you with its tongue? Where is the madness with which you should be cleansed? Behold, I teach you the Overman, he is this lightning, he is this madness. But the crowd fails to understand him, and bursts into laughter, mistaking him for the tightrope walker they came to see. Meanwhile, the actual tightrope walker begins his performance, symbolizing humanity's precarious progress between beast and Overman. Suddenly, a jester leaps over him, causing the tightrope walker to lose his footing and fall. Zarathustra rushes to the injured man, offering comfort. I've known for a long time that the devil would trip me up. Now he's dragging me to hell. Are you trying to prevent him? On my honor, friend, answered Zarathustra, all you have spoken of does not exist. There is no devil and no hell. Your soul will be dead even before your body, therefore fear nothing anymore. The man looked up mistrustfully. "If you are speaking the truth," he said then, "I leave nothing when I leave life. I am not much more than an animal." "Not so," said Zarathustra. "You have made danger your calling. There is nothing in that to despise. Now you perish through your calling, so I will bury you with my own hands." Nietzsche suggests that the tightrope walker, who risked his life, embodies a nobler existence compared to the mediocrity of the last man. One characteristic of the Overman is the courage to confront danger. As Nietzsche famously states, "For believe me, the secret for harvesting from existence the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment is to live dangerously." The last man, by contrast, represents the antithesis of the Overman. These individuals strive for conformity, content to blend into the crowd and avoid anything risky or extraordinary. They are perfectly happy being virtually indistinguishable from everyone else, believing they have discovered happiness in mediocrity. When Zarathustra speaks of the last man, the crowd cheers, shouting, "Give us this last man, O Zarathustra! Make us into this last man. You can have the Overman." Their laughter reveals their inability to grasp Zarathustra's message. Zarathustra grows sad, lamenting, "They do not understand me. I am not the mouth for these ears." The crowd remains fixated on the tightrope walker, whose perilous crossing symbolizes humanity's journey between beast and Overman. Yet, the tragic fall of the tightrope walker serves as a metaphor for the dangers inherent in striving toward greatness. Those who embrace risk and danger, like the tightrope walker, live admirable lives, while those who cling to safety and mediocrity embody the last man. In the original German text of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche employs rich wordplay that is often lost in translation. For instance, Zarathustra's descent from the mountains symbolizes both his down-going Untergang and his overgoing Bergang, evoking the concept of overcoming Wind central to the Overman Übermensch. This duality underscores the paradoxical nature of self-overcoming. It involves both a going under and a rising above. Ultimately, the Overman cannot be separated from the idea of overcoming. Throughout the book, Nietzsche repeats the refrain, "Man is something that should be overcome." The man who has overcome himself becomes the Overman, while the last man represents stagnation and complacency. As Zarathustra observes, man is a rope tied between beast and Overman, a rope over an abyss. A dangerous going across, a dangerous on the way, a dangerous looking back, a dangerous shuddering and staying still. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not an end. What is lovable in man is that he is an overgoing and a downgoing. Through this vivid imagery, Nietzsche challenges us to ask ourselves, are we content to remain as we are, or will we dare to cross the abyss and become something greater? 5. The concept of eternal recurrence and its connection to the Übermensch. Nietzsche evokes the figure of man as that of a tightrope walker, balancing precariously between creator and creature, the human and the all-too-human, but also the human, superhuman. This phrase is a variation of the earlier human, all-too-human, which Nietzsche used to highlight our animal nature. The human, superhuman, on the other hand, refers to our true self, the potential within us to transcend mediocrity and achieve self-mastery. The Overman, then, is the one who has fully realized this potential, becoming a master of their own destiny. When Nietzsche declares, "The Overman is the meaning of the earth," the Overman shall be the meaning of the earth, he seeks to shift humanity's focus entirely to this life, rejecting the devaluation of earthly existence in favor of an imagined afterlife. He implores his readers, "I beseech you, my brothers, remain faithful to the earth, and do not believe those who speak to you of otherworldly hopes. Poison mixers are they, whether they know it or not. Despisers of life are they, decaying and poison themselves, of whom the earth is weary, so let them go. Once the sin against God was the greatest sin, but God died, and these sinners died with him." To sin against the earth is now the most dreadful thing, and to esteem the entrails of the unknowable higher than the meaning of the earth. Here, Nietzsche critiques the tendency to focus on an afterlife as a symptom of dissatisfaction with life itself, a way for suffering individuals to imagine another world that will fulfill their desire for revenge against the hardships of existence. This longing for transcendence led to the invention of an immortal soul, separate from the earthly body, which in turn fostered asceticism and the abnegation of the body. For Nietzsche, however, the soul and body are inseparable. The decline of Christianity in society, while inevitable, posed a profound danger. It created a vacuum that could easily give way to nihilism. Nietzsche illustrates this crisis through the parable of the madman who proclaims the death of God. This proclamation carries tragic undertones. Christianity had long emphasized the afterlife, devaluing earthly existence and fostering an over-appreciation of truth, which stifled criticism and creativity. Nietzsche saw Christianity as a self-destructive force, a will-to-nothingness, a negation of life itself, though still a form of willing. In other words, humanity would rather wish for nothingness than cease to will altogether. Yet, this rejection of life introduced a new and more insidious poison into existence, further devaluing the here and now. The death of God symbolizes the opening of a vast chasm of nihilism, a crisis that demands a radical transformation of kind. Nietzsche envisioned this transformation as philosophical rather than physical, an evolution of consciousness rather than biology. It would require a thorough questioning of the entire Western philosophical tradition and the adoption of a completely different attitude toward life. The root of the crisis for Nietzsche lies in the longing for the afterworld, a desire that has shaped Western thought since Socrates, who sought liberation from the prison of the body and earthly existence. In stark contrast to this longing, Zarathustra emphasizes the importance of remaining faithful to the earth. The further evolution of humankind, therefore, necessitates overcoming the dualisms that have dominated Western thought: mind versus body, spirit versus nature. To illustrate this point, consider the example of an artist who channels their suffering into their work, transforming pain into beauty. Such an individual does not deny their earthly existence but embraces it fully, finding meaning in the struggle itself. Nietzsche challenges us to ask, are we willing to confront the harsh realities of life, or will we continue to seek refuge in illusions? The eternal recurrence serves as a litmus test for this confrontation. Imagine living your life over and over again, exactly as it is, for eternity. Would you embrace this prospect with joy, or would you recoil in despair? For the Overman, the eternal recurrence is not a burden but an affirmation, a declaration that life, in all its complexity and imperfection, is worth living. As Nietzsche writes, "For as soon as the world became Christian, it began to die." What he means is that the Christian worldview drained life of its vitality, replacing it with a hollow promise of salvation. The challenge now is to reclaim the earth, to affirm life in its entirety, and to create values that reflect the richness of existence. The Overman embodies this affirmation, standing as a beacon of hope in the face of nihilism. By embracing the eternal recurrence, the Overman transcends the dichotomism and pessimism, choosing instead to live authentically and courageously. In this sense, the eternal recurrence is deeply connected to the concept of the Overman. Both ideas demand a radical reorientation of perspective, a shift from resentment to affirmation, from escapism to engagement. Nietzsche's philosophy invites us to rise above the mediocrity of the last man and strive toward the heights of the Overman. As he famously declares, he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Could the eternal recurrence provide the ultimate why? Perhaps it is the key to unlocking the full potential of human existence. 6. The role of the Übermensch in overcoming nihilism and creating new values. Nietzsche envisioned a monumental task, the revaluation of all values, which he believed could be achieved through the Overman, the eternal recurrence, and the will to power. His goal was to provide an alternative to traditional values in the absence of a divine order, urging humanity to stop gazing longingly at a supernatural realm and instead focus on this world. For Nietzsche, the Overman is not merely a philosophical ideal, but a solution to the pervasive problem of nihilism, and a way to conquer it by creating meaning where none previously existed. The Overman represents the ultimate purpose we should give to our lives, embodying strength, vitality, and well-being so abundant that they overflow into the lives of others. Nietzsche's proclamation is clear: dead are all gods, now we want the Overman to live, let this be our last will one day at the great Newtonid. This declaration marks a radical break from the past, rejecting the divine order that once anchored human values. In its place, Nietzsche calls for the creation of new values rooted in earthly existence. But who are the individuals capable of embracing this challenge? Nietzsche speaks of the higher men, extraordinary human beings who serve as examples of those who might follow his philosophical ideals. These individuals rise by their own strength, refusing to be carried upward by external forces. As Nietzsche puts it, man must grow to the height where the lightning can strike and shatter him, high enough for the lightning. These higher men are also described as free spirits, philosophers of the future, and creative geniuses, individuals endowed with both intellectual conscience and artistic sensibility. Nietzsche himself exemplifies the artistic style of life he advocates. He sees himself not only as a philosopher, but also as a poet and artist. In part IV of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Zarathustra reflects on the folly of his earlier attempts to connect with ordinary people when he first descended from the mountains to speak in the marketplace. There, he realized that speaking to everyone often meant speaking to no one. Nietzsche's writings are not intended for the masses. Instead, they are directed toward a select few who are willing to take risks in pursuit of true fulfillment and happiness. The subtitle of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, A Book for All and None, captures this paradox. Nietzsche writes for those rare individuals who dare to rise above mediocrity and embrace life's challenges. In one striking passage, Nietzsche critiques the mob mentality that denies the existence of higher men. In the marketplace, no one believes in higher men. The mob blink and say there are no higher men. We are all equal. Man is but man. Before God we are all equal. Before God. But now this God has died. This rejection of hierarchy and excellence reflects the leveling effect of egalitarianism, which Nietzsche saw as a symptom of cultural decline. Yet, even among the higher men, there is a recognition of inadequacy. Zarathustra reminds them, "You may all be higher men, but for me you are not high and strong enough." Earlier, he had declared, "Never yet has there been an Overman. Naked saw I both the greatest and the smallest man. They are still all too similar to each other. Verily, even the greatest I found all too human." This raises an important question: can a higher man ever achieve perfection, or does he remain in some respects all too human? While this consideration invites reflection, it does not undermine the interpretation of the Overman as the individual who must continually strive to overcome himself. The journey toward becoming the Overman is inherently incomplete, marked by perpetual self-overcoming. It is not about reaching a final destination, but about embracing the process of growth and transformation. To illustrate this idea, consider the metaphor of a sculptor chiseling away at a block of marble. Each stroke removes imperfections, yet the work is never truly finished. Similarly, the Overman is defined not by achieving perfection, but by relentlessly pursuing self-mastery and creativity. Nietzsche challenges us to ask, are we content to remain all too human, or will we strive to transcend our limitations and create something extraordinary? The Overman embodies this striving, offering a path forward in a world grappling with the void left by the death of God. Ultimately, The role of the Overman is to overcome nihilism by creating new values that affirm life in all its complexity. Through the eternal recurrence, the Overman learns to embrace existence fully, finding joy even in its darkest moments. As Nietzsche famously declares, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. For the Overman, the why is the affirmation of life itself, a call to live authentically, courageously, and creatively. In doing so, the Overman not only transcends nihilism, but also paves the way for a new era of human potential. 7 key characteristics of the Übermensch: self-mastery, creativity, and living dangerously. The Overman is deeply intertwined with Nietzsche's notions of eternal recurrence and the will to power. The eternal recurrence posits that one would have to relive the same life, every struggle, every victory, every event, every experience repeated endlessly for eternity. For Nietzsche, the eternal recurrence was less an abstract idea and more an existential experience, the supreme test of a life rich in suffering, pain, agony. It challenges individuals to confront the question: if you had to live this life over and over again, exactly as it is, would you embrace it with joy or recoil in despair? In Twilight of the Idols, Nietzsche boldly declares himself the last disciple of the philosopher Dionysus and the teacher of the eternal recurrence. He writes, "You higher men, do learn this: joy wants eternity. Joy wants eternity of all things, wants deep eternity." This proclamation underscores the Overman's capacity to affirm life unconditionally. For the weak who cling to the hope of kingdom, power, and glory in an afterlife, the doctrine of eternal recurrence would be unbearable, a crushing weight Nietzsche referred to as the heaviest burden. Yet for the strong, it becomes the ultimate incentive to achieve perfection, a call to live life with unparalleled intensity and purpose. The eternal recurrence represents the ultimate affirmation of existence, an eternal repetition of what constitutes life in the present world. To embrace it fully, one must possess an impassioned love of life, craving nothing more fervently than this ultimate eternal confirmation and seal. Self-overcoming, expressed through the will to power, lies at the heart of this process. The will to power is not about dominating others, but about mastering oneself, becoming who one truly is. It manifests in the encounter with obstacles, where both pain and pleasure are inextricably linked. As Nietzsche suggests, intense pain often gives rise to a feeling of joy so profound that it rivals the ecstasy of the gods. This dynamic interplay between suffering and joy defines the journey toward the Overman. The Overman ultimately accepts the eternal recurrence with great joy, for he is the highest life affirm, a being who embraces existence in its totality, without resentment or regret. Nietzsche encapsulates this ideal in his concept of amor fati, love of fate. My formula for the greatness of a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. One's character is in constant becoming. As one tries the seemingly impossible task of reaching the stars, one aspires to the highest possible goal. To illustrate this idea, imagine a climber scaling a treacherous mountain. Each step is fraught with danger, each misstep a potential disaster. Yet, the climber persists, driven by the sheer exhilaration of the challenge. For the Overman, life itself is this climb, a perpetual striving toward ever greater heights, embracing both the risks and rewards of the journey. This willingness to live dangerously is a hallmark of the Overman's character. As Nietzsche famously declares, the secret for harvesting from existence the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment is to live dangerously. Creativity is another defining trait of the Overman. Just as an artist transforms raw materials into a masterpiece, the Overman shapes their life into a work of art, creating values and meanings that reflect their unique vision. This creative act is not limited to traditional forms of artistry, but extends to every aspect of existence. The Overman lives authentically, crafting their own path rather than conforming to societal expectations. Self-mastery, creativity, and living dangerously converge in the figure of the Overman, who embodies the pinnacle of human potential. By embracing the eternal recurrence, the Overman transcends the ordinary limitations of human existence, affirming life in all its complexity and beauty. Nietzsche challenges us to ask, are we willing to take on the burden of eternal recurrence, to strive for greatness, and to create a life worth living infinitely? For those who answer yes, the path of the Overman awaits a journey of self-overcoming, boundless creativity, and unwavering affirmation of existence. 8. The Übermensch as a solution to humanity's spiritual crisis. This self-overcoming is the unifying thread that weaves together the will to power, the Overman, and the eternal recurrence. It stands as one of the most profound and essential aspects of Nietzsche's entire philosophy, all to transcend the limitations of human existence and embrace life in its fullest, most authentic form. In a world grappling with the void left by the death of God, Nietzsche presents the Übermensch as the antidote to nihilism and spiritual despair. The Übermensch does not seek refuge in otherworldly hopes or cling to outdated moral systems, but instead creates their own values, affirming life in the here and now. Through the eternal recurrence, they learn to embrace every moment of existence, transforming suffering into strength and pain into joy. This radical affirmation of life, coupled with the relentless pursuit of self-mastery and creativity, offers humanity a path forward amidst the chaos of modernity. The journey toward becoming the Übermensch is not an easy one. It demands courage, resilience, and a willingness to live dangerously. Yet, it is precisely this challenge that makes the Übermensch a beacon of hope for those who refuse to settle for mediocrity. By overcoming themselves, individuals can rise above the herd mentality, rejecting conformity and stagnation in favor of growth and transformation. As Nietzsche reminds us, man is something that should be overcome. The Übermensch embodies this ideal, representing the highest expression of human potential. Ultimately, Nietzsche's vision of the Übermensch serves as a solution to humanity's spiritual crisis rooted in the loss of meaning and purpose in a post-religious world. By embracing the concepts of self-overcoming, the will to power, and the eternal recurrence, individuals can reclaim their agency and create a life rich with significance. The Übermensch teaches us that true fulfillment lies not in escaping life's difficulties, but in confronting them head-on, finding beauty and meaning even in the struggle. As we reflect on Nietzsche's philosophy, we are left with a powerful question: are we willing to take on the challenge of becoming who we truly are? For those brave enough to answer, the Übermensch offers not just a solution to the spiritual crisis of our time, but a vision of what it means to live a life worth living, an existence defined by creativity, authenticity, and an unwavering love of fate. Through this article, we've explored the journey to becoming the Overman, a person who lives with absolute freedom, endless creativity, and the ability to affirm life. This is not just a philosophical theory, but an invitation for each of us to transcend our limits, break free from traditional constraints, and create new values for ourselves. As Nietzsche once said, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. Becoming the Overman is not a destination, but a continuous journey of growth and self-overcoming. If you found this article helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your comments on how you apply this philosophy to your life. Thank you for joining us on True Freedom. See you in the next video, where we'll continue exploring fascinating philosophies to help you live a more meaningful life. The exciting discussion will begin in just a few moments.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going deep into something you might have heard of, maybe even from like pop culture, but trust me, we're going way beyond that.
Okay.
It's Nietzsche's Übermensch.
Ooh.
Yeah. The Overman.
All right.
Now, you might be thinking Superman, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to find out, what makes this idea so much more than just a comic book, hero.
Well, and what's really interesting about the Overman is it's not actually about superhuman strength or defying gravity.
Right.
It's a philosophical ideal for Nietzsche, someone who transcends societal norms and creates their own values. Think of it like a sculptor who's breaking free from traditional forms.
Yeah.
They're not just chipping away at the marble, but they're reshaping the entire art of sculpting itself.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this is deeper than just powers and capes and stuff.
Yeah.
Our source material today, it's an article. It's titled, "Why Nietzsche's Overman is the Key to Living a Meaningful Life." You need to know this. And it connects this idea to people like Leonardo da Vinci and Marie Curie. Could they be considered overmen? What did they do that was so groundbreaking?
It's less about labeling individuals and more about looking at how they embody certain aspects of the Overman.
Okay, yeah.
So you have someone like Da Vinci, a true Renaissance man.
Right.
He wasn't content with just mastering one field. Painter, sculptor, inventor, scientist, constantly pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible.
Right.
He didn't let societal expectations limit his pursuit of knowledge or his creative expression.
And then you have Marie Curie breaking barriers, right?
Exactly.
Not only was she a pioneer in radioactivity,
Yeah.
but she did it when women in science face so much just prejudice.
Right.
She challenged the very structure of the scientific community.
Yeah, and forced them to recognize her brilliance.
Exactly.
So both Da Vinci and Curie exemplify that spirit of self-determination that's so central to the Overman. They weren't content with following the rules or accepting limitations placed upon them. They created their own paths.
Yeah.
And by doing so, they redefined what it means to be a true innovator.
That's a good point. It's not even about achieving something. It's just that inner drive.
Yeah.
Speaking of pushing limits, can we talk about the term Übermensch?
Yeah.
That's kind of intimidating, honestly.
It's a word that has been, shall we say, lost in translation over the years.
Yeah.
Superman is a common one, but misleading translation,
Right.
as is Beyond Man. The most accurate is Overman.
Sure.
And what's really interesting is that the source material connects it to Ralph Waldo Emerson's idea of the oversoul.
Wait, Nietzsche was an Emerson fan. That's kind of cool. It adds another layer to this whole idea.
He was, and this connection really highlights how the Overman is not just about individual power,
Yeah.
but also about striving towards a higher level of being,
Okay.
a connection to something greater. But it's important to remember this concept didn't just appear out of thin air.
Right.
Nietzsche had earlier writings about free spirits that laid the groundwork for the Overman.
Right. These free spirits, they were individuals who, rejected societal norms
Right.
and embraced intellectual independence. But how did they evolve into the concept of the Overman?
So think of it more as a progression,
Okay.
an evolution of thought.
Yeah.
The free spirit challenges conventions, but the Overman takes it a step further.
Okay.
They don't just reject what's given.
Okay.
They actively create their own values. They are, so to speak, the next stage of development.
I think it's fascinating that the source mentions Nietzsche imagined these free spirits as companions during times of isolation.
Yeah.
Makes you think, especially when you're struggling, how you crave those like-minded individuals who just get it.
It's a very human desire, and it challenges this misconception that the Overman is like a solitary superhuman figure.
Yeah.
They are forged through struggle, and they seek connection with others who share that drive to transcend limitations.
So we have these free spirits that evolve into the concept of the Overman. But how does that transformation actually happen?
Well,
Is there a roadmap?
according to Nietzsche, it's a journey with 3 distinct stages, and he uses a rather unexpected metaphor to represent them. Animals.
Animals. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Tell me more.
All right, so the first stage is represented by the camel.
Oh, okay.
Not the most glamorous creature,
Right.
but it symbolizes the first phase of transformation, bearing burdens, enduring suffering. The source really emphasizes the importance of humility in this stage.
Okay.
It's not about being strong or powerful yet, but about accepting the weight of experience, even the difficult parts.
Like an athlete pushing through grueling training,
Precisely.
even when they're facing setbacks and failures.
The camel teaches us to embrace the challenges and hardships that come with personal growth. Then comes the lion.
Ooh.
And here's where things get a bit more exciting.
Yeah.
The lion symbolizes rejecting authority, roaring a defiant no to the conventions and rules that hold you back.
Now that's powerful. Makes me think of figures like Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes.
Boldly challenging injustice, fighting for what he believed in.
Absolutely.
Even when it meant going against the grain.
Yeah. But the lion's roar is only part of the journey. The final stage, believe it or not, is represented by the child.
A child.
Yeah.
How does a child fit into this powerful idea of the Overman? It seems kind of a mismatch.
It's not about childishness, but about recapturing a childlike sense of playfulness and creativity.
Okay.
The child says yes to life, but on their own terms. They're free from the weight of tradition, able to see the world with fresh eyes, and imagine new possibilities.
Like a kid building a sandcastle, lost in their own world.
Yeah.
Pure imagination, right?
Exactly.
They don't care about what's been done before. They're just creating from a place of pure joy and possibility.
And that's a key element of becoming the Overman. It's not just about rejecting what is,
Okay.
but also embracing the power to create something new.
Something that reflects your own values and vision.
This is fascinating.
Yeah.
So we've gone from the burdened camel to the rebellious lion to the creative child. But what happens after that final stage? What does it actually mean to be an Overman? Like, where does the rubber meet the road?
Well, Nietzsche contrasts the Overman with what he calls the last man.
Okay.
And this comparison really gets to the heart of what's at stake.
Okay.
The Overman embraces risk, defines their own meaning, and constantly strives for self-mastery. The last man, on the other hand,
Settles for a comfortable yet ultimately unfulfilling existence.
you're picking up what Nietzsche's putting down.
Avoiding discomfort and risk at all costs.
He saw the last man as the antithesis to the Overman, someone who prioritizes comfort and conformity over growth and self-actualization.
Okay.
They might have a stable job, a predictable routine, but their life lacks that spark of meaning, that drive to become something more.
I'm starting to see the contrast here. And I have to admit, it makes you wonder where you fall on that spectrum, right?
Right. Are you content with the comfort of conformity?
Yeah.
Or are you striving for something more?
Exactly.
To truly embrace the challenge of becoming an Overman.
And the source uses a really vivid example to illustrate this struggle. Zarathustra's encounter with the tightrope walker.
Okay.
It highlights the dangers and the nobility of striving for something greater.
Yeah.
Risking everything for a chance to transcend those limitations.
Okay, now you've piqued my curiosity. Tell me more about this tightrope walker. It sounds intense.
So to truly grasp this contrast between the Overman and the last man, let's look at Zarathustra's encounter with the tightrope walker. Picture this. Zarathustra, he's Nietzsche's philosophical mouthpiece, is addressing a crowd that has gathered to watch this daring feat.
I can already sense like the anticipation, the danger. I mean, tightrope walking, that takes incredible skill, incredible balance.
Right.
One wrong step, and it could be disastrous.
Exactly, and that's what makes this example so powerful.
Okay.
The tightrope walker embodies risk, striving for something beyond the ordinary. A refusal to simply stand still. But as he's walking, a jester leaps over him, causing him to fall to the ground below.
Oh, no. That's terrifying. What happens next?
Zarathustra rushes to the injured man's side, offering him comfort in his final moments. But what's striking is what the tightrope walker says.
Yeah.
He claims he's not much more than an animal because he's leaving nothing behind in death.
Wow.
It's like he's equating his worth with material accomplishments,
Yeah.
a legacy that can be seen and touched.
It's heartbreaking, but it's a real fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
That your life won't amount to anything, that you'll leave no lasting mark.
And that's precisely the mindset Nietzsche's challenging.
Okay.
Zarathustra tells the tightrope walker that he's wrong, that his life, lived on the edge of danger and purpose, is something to be respected.
Right.
It's a life that the last men in the crowd, obsessed with comfort and security, would never dare to live.
So even though he didn't achieve, like, conventional success or leave behind material riches, his willingness to push boundaries, embrace risk, that's what gave his life meaning.
Precisely. He dared to reach for something more, something beyond the mundane and predictable. And by doing so, he embodied a spirit that Nietzsche saw as essential to human fulfillment.
I'm really struck by this tightrope walker analogy.
Yeah.
It's like this powerful reminder that a meaningful life isn't necessarily about what you achieve. It's about how you live, you know, pushing beyond your comfort zone, embracing challenge, forging your own path,
Right.
even if it means, you know, facing uncertainty and risk.
And that brings us to another mind-bending concept Nietzsche explores,
Okay.
eternal recurrence.
Oh, boy.
Imagine living your life exactly as it is over and over again forever.
Okay, I'm already getting a little existential crisis here.
Every triumph, every heartbreak, every mundane Tuesday afternoon,
Yeah.
repeated in an endless cycle.
Would I be thrilled or would I be horrified?
It's a lot to process, right? And that's the point.
Yeah.
The source emphasizes that eternal recurrence isn't meant to be taken literally, but as a thought experiment, a tool for self-reflection.
So if the idea of reliving your life exactly as is fills you with joy, then you're on the right track.
Right.
You're living in alignment with your values, pursuing the things that truly matter.
Mm-hmm.
But if the thought just fills you with dread, it might be a sign you need to reevaluate your choices, make some changes.
Exactly. Imagine reliving every triumph and every regret.
Yeah.
Would you change anything?
That's the power of this concept.
Hmm.
It forces you to examine your choices and values.
Yeah.
Ask yourself if you're truly living a life you choose to repeat.
It's like a cosmic gut check,
Yeah.
forcing you to confront the reality of your choices and whether they align with the life you want to be living.
Yeah, it makes you think.
This makes me think of another heavy topic Nietzsche grappled with, the death of God. Right. And it's important to understand that this idea isn't about atheism in a literal sense.
Right.
It's more about the decline of traditional belief systems.
Okay.
And what that means for how we find meaning in a world without inherent purpose.
Right.
Without a preordained set of values. Who decides what's right and wrong? Who defines our purpose?
That's unsettling.
Yeah.
If there's no God to give us those values, how do we determine what's right and wrong?
Right.
How do we make sense of our existence?
It's like being cast adrift in a sea of uncertainty.
And that's where the Overman comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't rely on external sources for meaning.
Right.
They create their own values, forging their own path in a world without preordained purpose.
So it's like Nietzsche saying, okay, the old systems are crumbling, but that doesn't mean life is meaningless. It just means we have the freedom and the responsibility to create our own in meaning.
Mm-hmm.
That's a heavy burden, but also incredibly empowering.
It's a call to action to embrace the power and the burden of self-creation. And that's perhaps the most challenging and ultimately rewarding aspect of striving towards this Overman ideal.
But how do we actually do that?
Right.
How do we become Overman? At least start moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Is there a step-by-step guide?
Well, the source emphasizes it's not about checking off a list.
Okay.
It's an ongoing process of self-overcoming, pushing beyond your limits, confronting those aspects of yourself that hold you back.
So it's not a destination, it's a journey.
Exactly.
A continuous journey of growth and self-discovery.
Mm-hmm. But the source does highlight some key characteristics of the Overman that we can all work towards, regardless of where we are on our own personal journeys.
Okay.
And these qualities might surprise you.
All right, lay it on me.
They're not about superhuman strength or anything like that.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What are these Overman-esque qualities that we can start cultivating today?
Well, the source material highlights 3 key characteristics: self-mastery, creativity, and living dangerously.
Living dangerously. Okay, that sounds a little intense, but I'm intrigued.
It's not about being reckless, but about embracing risk, pushing your boundaries, and being willing to step outside your comfort zone.
Okay, so not like base jumping or anything.
Not necessarily. It's more about challenging yourself to grow and evolve, to confront your fears and embrace new experiences.
That makes sense. So taking on a new project that really stretches your abilities, or maybe traveling to a place you've never been before.
Exactly. It's about those moments where you're stepping outside of the familiar and embracing the unknown.
So how does self-mastery fit into all of this? Sounds a bit like, I don't know, Stoic philosophy.
There are definitely some parallels. But for Nietzsche, self-mastery isn't about suppressing your emotions or denying your desires. It's about understanding and channeling those forces within yourself. It's about becoming the master of your own inner world.
So it's not about denying your desires, but about, harnessing them, directing them towards something meaningful.
Precisely. It's about aligning your actions with your values, even when it's difficult.
So we're mastering ourselves, embracing risk. What about creativity? Where does that fit into the Overman ideal?
Creativity isn't just about artistic expression. It's about approaching life with a sense of possibility, of seeing the world as a canvas for your own unique vision.
So it's not just for artists and musicians. It's for anyone who wants to shape their own life, to make something new and meaningful.
Exactly. The Overman isn't content with simply accepting what's given. They actively create their own reality. They forge their own path.
This has been a truly fascinating deep dive. It's made me think about the Overman in a whole new light. It's not about superpowers or capes. It's about a way of being in the world.
It's about embracing the challenge of becoming the best version of yourself, of constantly striving to transcend your limitations and create a life that truly reflects your values.
Well said. We've gone deep into Nietzsche's Overman. It's not about superpowers, it's about a way of being.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final question.
Okay.
If the Overman is the answer to a world without inherent meaning, what small step could you take today to start creating your own meaning? What action, even a seemingly insignificant one, could set you on that path toward a more fulfilling life?
A more authentic life, yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you gained some new insights and maybe even some inspiration to create your own unique path. And as always, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deeper.